Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of Rimworld Odyssey with the spacefaring Stars of Som. Last time we left off, after hunting down another gravcore, our journey took us through a waster pirate outpost and across several islands until we finally launched our Gravship into orbit and explored this abandoned orbital platform. Just as we arrived, Nelgraf then exposed our latest recruit, Unwise Elder, who let out a twisted shriek, followed by a Sightstealer attack. With a little help from the station's defenses, we were able to take the entities out and obtained the Gravcore, and will now stick around for just a little while longer to gather any other valuables we can find. We are also butchering the Sightstealer corpses for dread leather and twisted meat. The latter can be used to make camp fuel if necessary. Our researchers then unlock auto doors. Up next, I think we go with advanced lights to cut down our power bill a little bit, before we then construct a second vac barrier in front of our shuttle bay. Just in that moment, an eclipse hits the space station, but we've got enough power still coming in to keep our vital systems running, including the newly built vac barrier that now allows us to safely fuel up the shuttle Black Shadow. With advanced lights now also done, let's unlock IEDs next for that extra bit of defense if we need it, and then we send Fabian to board the shuttle. What we are hoping to find now is a map that has mineable plasteel on it, as we are currently a few units shy of what we need for an important construction project that I want to finish before we lift off. The mountainous terrain on this island here looks good. Sadly though, as we arrive, there is no plasteel to be found, so we have Fabian take a bath in a nearby lake while we wait for the shuttle to be usable again. A short while later then, we lift back off for a rather short journey to the neighboring tile. This is trial and error, and if we don't succeed, there are other ways of obtaining what we need, but they are a bit more costly. Map number 2 unfortunately has no plasteel either, so while we wait for the shuttle cooldown, we send our group of fighters back onto the orbital platform to open up some ancient cryptosleep caskets. Before we can see what's inside, Fabian then explores map number 3. Once more though, we are out of luck with this one, and we only have enough fuel to visit one more tile before the return trip becomes impossible. Back in orbit meanwhile, our adventuring party opens the first casket, and unfortunately, but not unexpectedly, we have hostiles inside. They do not take kindly to our presence, but we have numbers, firepower, and Blubber the Hive Queen, so the fight does not last long. One of them also went down here, but Brent just keeps firing, which eventually results in a kill. Rather unfortunate, because it was just a 14-year-old girl with decent stats, but I suppose the events of the last episode may have spooked our genie enough to not take any chances. Well, we have a second set of caskets to try again. No surprise to find more hostiles inside, and also no surprise to see another short-lived combat encounter. But this time we've got 2 survivors, both with intriguing stats, so let's take them in. Our hospital will temporarily get repurposed to house them as prisoners, and then we jump back over to Fabian, who is now approaching his 4th survey site. And well, with this one we get lucky. Not 1 but 2 veins of plasteel are immediately visible, so let's get digging, while our Gravship crew patches up the wounded. With Kyla taking care of a small fire near the cryptosleep caskets, we then have bad news arriving for Fabian. 2 tribal warriors were attracted by the shuttle landing, and they're now coming over to investigate. While they outnumber us, we have the better equipment, so let's strike first, and Fabian actually gets off a decent number of hits here before anyone thinks to retaliate. That means it is now a one-on-one fight, and well, assault rifle versus club, I think I like Fabian's chances. And there we go, that's both hostiles down and we can get back to mining. Our Gravship's researchers, meanwhile, can start working on turret packs. The IED research was finished a few hours ago, and I can finally reveal what we're going through all this trouble for. I want to build a grav anchor on this station. A grav anchor will allow our crew to return to this place even after the Gravship has left. Up until now, any site we lifted off from was permanently destroyed, but after reading your comments on the last episode, I was really intrigued by the idea of perhaps repurposing the site as an orbital base or even as our planned space zoo. I'm not entirely sure yet whether I prefer an asteroid for that or whether this station here suffices. Either way, the grav anchor requires 300 units of plasteel. That's why Fabian is currently gathering more. Eventually, with the eclipse also passing, we have mined enough for Fabian to load up the shuttle and fly back up into orbit, where Saber and Blubber are currently working on dispatching of the last few turret defenses. If we actually want to make this a home, those of course have no place still being active. Fabian then returns. The shuttle bay was sadly inaccessible for the landing, so he suffers a minor vacuum burn as he sprints back into the safety of our ship, but we now have enough materials to finish the grav anchor. Before that happens, however, Furion celebrates his 13th birthday and officially becomes a Rimworld adult. His passion at the moment, drawing pictures of notorious insects, might be Blubber's influence there. Either way, we have a great selection of skill passions to choose from and can essentially double down on all the important ones for him: medical, social, and intellectual. I also gave him some crafting on a Gravship, that's never a bad idea, and for his trait then it was a toss-up between Jogger and Fast Learner, but since we have double passions for all his core skills, I felt like Fast Learner would be overkill, and he does already have great memory. So Jogger it is, and with that we are looking at a very promising young high mate now. By the way, in the comments of the last episode, most of you also picked Furion as the most suitable recipient of the Siling Neuroformer we obtained last time. I still feel like holding off on that for the moment though, since the Stars of Som strike me as a very science-based faction, and the only time they have strayed away from that and risked taking in someone unnatural in Unwise Elder, they were immediately punished for it. So at the moment, I think they'd be reluctant to accept another boon that no one can really explain. Now, a few hours later, Alex finishes the grav anchor, and so we now have a place to come back to, should life on the planet's surface no longer suit us. Nonetheless, we are going to touch back down in just a moment. First of all, though, let's scavenge the station's hydroponic setup. We might just need it soon to expand our own. Then it's time for yet another Gravship launch, and well, there is a place we already know to have one important resource, so let's go back to Fabian's mining site, which conveniently also offers the comfortable climate and environment of the temperate forest. Now, as we arrive and lead our animals out to graze, this place here will hopefully be the site of the biggest expansion to our Gravship yet. You can see it with the plans I have put down. The size of the Heezer will almost double with this upgrade. As a result, though, we could be stuck here for a while, so it is not without risk. To start off, however, things go smoothly. We of course also mine plenty of steel to be able to build everything, and we also finish turret packs. I think up next we can unlock hunter drones. To be honest though, at this point we have probably researched everything we need except for the mech gestation stuff, but for that we would need a mechanitor, and we haven't had any luck on that front yet. It also doesn't take long for the next quest to appear. We are asked to hunt down and eliminate a fugitive on an orbital space platform. In exchange, we could obtain a second Gravship shield generator. Sounds like a fun quest, and a second generator would have its benefits, although the one we already have is barely getting used as it is, so I'm unsure about this one. On the next morning then, we move our grav engine and place 2 grav field extenders to cover our entire building area. One we already have, the second one we need to build, and a third one will also need to be constructed soon, as the design is just too large for the space that 2 extenders grant us. A cargo pod drop full of steel then comes as a convenient surprise in the evening, although Saber has been steadily mining and we should not be running out anytime soon. A little later, Brian goes on a food binge mental break. Seems like I overlooked our food situation a tiny bit while making grand plans. No worries though, we have plenty of meat nearby, we just need to obtain it. On the next morning then, it's time to make a decision regarding Unwise Elder, and I think, as useful as her unnatural healing ability may be, our Stars of Som would consider her recent betrayal just a bit too much to keep her around. On a different map, without plenty of sentry drones, the Sightstealer assault could have ended horribly and put the entire crew in jeopardy. That's not something we're just going to forgive. Pair that with the fact that it all took place just moments after we generously cured her life-threatening organ decay, and I feel like the Stars of Som have every right to banish her. Who knows, maybe we'll see her again, but I don't think anyone would shed a tear if we don't. With the Hunter Drone research project then completed shortly after, we switch off our research setup for the time being and focus entirely on construction work, although it seems like we actually don't have enough graphite panels to finish the foundation here. Luckily, we have already unlocked the means to manufacture our own, but that will take a little while. In the meantime, we can already put up some of the new ship hull. As you can see here, we need at least 1 more grav field extender to cover everything, and we should get that built soon, just in case we need to make an emergency liftoff. In the middle of the night then, fantastic news, Terra Kittens has given birth. And even though Father Felix is just a regular Thrumbo, with the mother being an Alpha Thrumbo, her child is too, and will now go by the rather fitting name of Myth, as always named after a channel supporter. In the back of the Gravship, we then start working on some details. This here will be our shuttle bay and energy storage, and we're also putting up 2 prison cells on the left and right. At the moment, we're actually leaving enough space here for 2 shuttles. Yes, we could in theory build a second one if we find another engine, although if we don't, we could also use the space for transport pods. Another quest then also comes flying in. 5 mechs and 21 man-hunting waste rats and an unknown threat are protecting a toxic spewer that we could activate in exchange for some interesting rewards, including a legendary obsidian gladius. Obsidian, a rare material found only in the lava fields that currently makes the best sharp weapons in the game. We have 1.5 days to make a decision though, and we'll use that time to continue building for now, only to be interrupted by another opportunity to obtain a gravcore shortly after, this one on a crashed mechanoid platform. The fact that we're currently on an island also seems to work in our favor here, as the game always spawns these locations somewhat close by, and of course they cannot appear in the water, so they end up just around the corner. With some rice being harvested in the background, our 2 new prison cells are then finished. High time we move our 2 captives out of the hospital and into these rooms, which are comparatively luxurious. In fact, our prisoners now actually have more comfort and privacy in their cells than our pawns have in their sleeping barracks. In the evening then, it finally happens. We have spotted a Mechanitor mech site. I have been waiting for this for weeks now, because I think mechs could really add to this playthrough, so we'll head over there to grab the mech link as soon as possible. For the time being though, we prioritize the task at hand. After the first of our 2 prisoners is converted, and with the shuttle bay mostly done, we now begin work on a small ideology room. Since reaching high expectations, our pawns have been demanding an altar, and we can combine it with a nice dance setup to meet all requirements without taking up too much space. The room below with the blue plants, by the way, that will eventually become our mech lab. We of course also don't forget about a steady food supply. Some horse meat is on the menu now, and afterwards we accept the smoke spewer quest. As advertised, we'll grab the gladius as a reward. the mechanoids activate the machine a few moments later. I don't actually think we need to deal with it though. It doesn't darken the sky to the point where plants no longer grow, and our solar panels will also only work at a slightly reduced capacity. The Gladius, meanwhile, is equipped by Saber, replacing her plasteel spear and offering roughly 50% more base damage per second, which is further increased by Saber's strong melee gene, so the weapon ultimately deals almost 30 damage in her hands. The next step in our Gravship overhaul then is the workshop, currently still occupied by a few hydroponics basins, but those will move out soon, and we should have more than enough space here for all the production facilities we need. Moving on, we then take care of the hospital, which will actually remain largely in its original place. We'll just move things around slightly to accommodate the new ship layout. At night, the timer on the orbital felon quest also runs out, so let's accept. After doing so, we now have an additional 55 days to deal with the problem, so we are in no rush. The next morning arrives and we start moving shelves. Our storage area will from now on occupy the northeastern part of the ship, although moving everything over there could take a while. Eventually, though, we have enough space to move our freezer from one side of the ship to the other. The nutrient paste dispenser will of course follow, as we plan to establish our new common room area on the Heeser's port side. Apologies, by the way, if I'm breezing through all of this construction work a little too quickly for your liking, but the project is a massive undertaking, and I want to complete it all in one episode today without the video becoming terribly bloated. On the next morning, we begin working on the dining and common room, and also bring in a small yet important Tinctoria harvest, as a small group of sparrows suddenly goes mad and turns manhunter. Well, time to put Saber's new weapon to the test. Accompanied by Blubber and Felix, she makes quick work of the birds. A short while later, we have also finally manufactured enough Gravlight panels to finally put up the third Grav field extender, and with that our entire ship is now covered, and we can officially lift off again should we need to. This, I think, also warrants the long overdue name change to Heeser Mark III. Who knows how many more iterations we'll see. While our Gravship slowly approaches its final form, nature then sends a cold snap our way. Nothing too dangerous, I think, with outside temperatures currently around 15 degrees Celsius, but we should prepare to build a few more heaters if things get too frigid. Those heaters, of course, won't do us any good during a solar flare, the next event that Randy sends our way. Let's hope it passes quickly, as our ship is barely functional without juice. Nonetheless, we spent the nighttime hours being productive. Two important areas are still missing, and they were previously right next to each other, so we'll keep that up: research lab and sleeping barracks. Both a little bit more spacious this time around, and the research labs can probably even be downsized in the not-so-distant future. Out of the blue then, we are also informed of new lovers. Nick and Deborah have become a couple, the 29-year-old Nick going steady with the 18-year-old Deborah, and they're not the only ones. Just a few seconds later, Fabian and Zero also announced their relationship. The age difference a bit more serious here, with Fabian being 26 and Zero a ripe 62, but in both cases we're not ones to judge. Both couples have good timing as well, as we are just about to finish the basic bedroom setup. Now we can build double beds for them, which saves us a little space and will provide a small mood bonus. On the next morning, we first see our second prisoner converted, then the power comes back on, and then Cat hides in her room. She was getting a bit hungry with the nutrient paste dispenser shut down, and this is now the result. At this point, we should also talk about our two prisoners. They are both pretty much ready to be recruited, if that is indeed what we want to do. You can see their stats on screen here. The one on the left is probably the better of the two, but let me know what you think we should do with them. We could of course also simply release them, just like we did with Unwise Elder. They did attack us first after all, if only for a few seconds. We're moving on to the final touches now. The ship's top left corner will become a hydroponics farm, even if temperatures currently do not allow for sowing out new plants. The entry area with the turrets will also receive a slight overhaul, but probably not in this episode. Design-wise, you might also slowly start to see my vision come together here. Maybe it becomes even clearer now that our pawns start to paint the Hese's hull in toad-like purple. And yes, we can certainly discuss whether this more closely resembles a frog or a toad hat. Either way, I think it nicely combines a homage to Brian's deceased Colossus toad with all the functionality that a Gravship needs to offer at this stage in the game. Let's not get distracted by Saber and Kyla exchanging blows here. Saber of course the victor, but both women end up battered and bruised. All in all though, I think we can draw a very positive conclusion from today's episode. The Hese Mark III looks nice and purple, and even though a few details still need to be ironed out, the basic overhaul is more or less complete at this point. With that, I think we have also reached a good point to make the cut for today. Next time then, we'll hopefully be able to grab that mech link and add some robots to the crew. Until then, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. And as always, if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.